You're not welcome here." The words pierced through the air, sharp and unforgiving. The echoes of the wealthy CEO's scream reverberated across the luxurious penthouse lounge, its elegant furnishings now tainted with tension. But standing tall and unwavering in the face of the barrage was a man in a blue jumpsuit, a janitor, with a child in his arms. "I'm here for my daughter," he calmly replied, his voice steady, a stark contrast to the venomous words thrown his way. What could possibly cause a millionaire CEO to berate a humble janitor in such a way? What was it about this moment that turned it into something much more than just an ordinary encounter? Please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Your support means everything to us. The city skyline glittered like 1,000 stars from the penthouse lounge's floor-to-ceiling windows. It was the kind of place that whispered wealth and power. The smooth marble floors gleamed under the warm lights, and the scent of expensive cologne mixed with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Guests mingled in silk gowns and tailored suits, effortlessly moving between conversations and champagne flutes. At the heart of this extravagant scene was the CEO, Rebecca Wells. She was tall, poised, and every inch the picture of corporate success. A businesswoman who had clawed her way to the top, Rebecca had everything: wealth, status, and power. She was an icon of what many aspired to become. And then, in stark contrast, there was Mark Taylor. A janitor, dressed in his humble blue jumpsuit, carrying his young daughter, Emma, in his arms. He was a man of simple means, working tirelessly to provide for his daughter, the only family he had left since his wife passed away 3 years ago. Mark was no stranger to hard work. He had taken up the janitor's job at Wells Enterprises after his wife's death, needing to make ends meet. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave him the chance to give Emma a stable life. He was there, cleaning the penthouse, doing his job like he always did, until that fateful moment when Rebecca's piercing voice broke the silence. "You don't belong here." Rebecca screamed, her eyes narrowing as she pointed a finger at Mark. The room seemed to freeze, as if everyone were holding their breath. Mark had heard the sneers, the whispers behind his back, the quiet judgments made by the affluent elite who frequented the high-rise. But nothing had prepared him for this: a CEO, a woman who seemingly had it all, casting judgment on a man who was simply trying to survive. Yet, there was something different about Mark. He wasn't intimidated. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even ashamed. Instead, he stood there, holding Emma protectively in his arms, a calmness radiating from him that cut through the tension in the room. "I'm here for my daughter," he replied, his voice soft but unwavering. The words hung in the air. It wasn't an excuse or a justification, it was a simple truth. He wasn't there for anyone else's approval. He wasn't there to prove his worth to anyone. He was there because he had a daughter who needed him, a daughter who needed to see the world differently than the one he grew up in. Rebecca Wells had built her empire from the ground up. Her father had left her with nothing but an old business card and an insatiable hunger to succeed. She had spent years in boardrooms, fighting to keep her place at the top, always pushing forward, always battling against a world that viewed her as nothing more than a girl trying to make it in a man's world. But as the years went on, the pressure to maintain her image had become overwhelming. The luxury, the power, the status, it was all she had known for so long. And somewhere along the way, she lost sight of what truly mattered. Rebecca had spent so much time fighting to get to the top that she forgot what it felt like to be human. She had surrounded herself with people who praised her for her business acumen and her success, but she had no real relationships. She didn't know how to connect, how to feel, how to understand people who didn't live in her world of wealth and privilege. Mark's response, however, shook her. His calm demeanor in the face of her harshness confused her. Why didn't he fight back? Why wasn't he angry? Wasn't he humiliated by her words? She looked at him, truly looked at him for the first time. He wasn't dressed in a suit. His hands were rough, calloused from years of manual labor. His clothes were simple, practical, and his face was one of weariness, but there was a quiet strength in his eyes. There was dignity, even in the way he held his daughter, shielding her from the harshness of the world. Rebecca couldn't understand it. How could someone like him, someone who had so little, maintain such calmness, such strength? And yet, there he was, standing tall with nothing but love for his daughter. Mark had a past that was filled with hardships, long hours working multiple jobs, struggling to provide for his daughter after his wife passed away unexpectedly. He had been forced to grow up quickly, to become both mother and father to Emma, to ensure she had the life she deserved despite the odds stacked against them. It wasn't always easy. There were days when Mark could barely make ends meet. He would skip meals, sacrifice his own comforts, just to ensure Emma had everything she needed, a roof over her head, food in her belly, and the chance to have a better life. But it wasn't just the financial struggles that wore on him. It was the emotional toll. He missed his wife every day. Emma had only a handful of memories of her mother, and it broke Mark's heart. He wished he could have done more, been more, but the weight of life kept pushing him down. Yet, through it all, he never wavered in his love for Emma. It was that love, that deep, unwavering commitment to his daughter, that gave him the strength to face the world, no matter how much it tried to break him. Rebecca, on the other hand, had her own set of challenges, though they were vastly different from Mark's. Her battle had always been against expectations, against the constant pressure to prove her worth. She had to fight to be seen, to be heard. She couldn't afford to show weakness, not in a world that would devour her if she did. She had built walls around herself, isolating herself from real connections, convincing herself that her worth was tied to her success. But in that moment, as she locked eyes with Mark, she began to realize that the walls she had built had made her blind to the truth. Success wasn't about power, wealth, or status. It was about love. It was about the people who stood beside you, who fought for you, and who made the world a better place just by existing. Rebecca walked away from the confrontation that night feeling something she had never experienced before, guilt. She had judged Mark, simply because he didn't fit the mold she had come to expect from people who walked into her world. She had been so quick to dismiss him, to treat him as less than human, because he didn't belong to the elite circle she had surrounded herself with. But now, as she sat in her office late that night, staring out at the city lights, Rebecca's heart began to open. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her own humanity. She thought of Mark's words, his unwavering love for his daughter, his quiet dignity. And she realized something profound: the world was built on moments of kindness, of understanding. It wasn't about who had the most money, the biggest house, or the most influential friends. It was about who showed up for each other, who fought for the people they loved, and who treated others with respect, no matter their station in life. The next day, Rebecca made an unexpected decision. She invited Mark to her office, not as a janitor, but as a man with a story. She wanted to hear more, to learn from his experiences. Mark, though surprised, agreed to meet with her. What followed was a conversation that would change both of their lives. Rebecca listened as Mark spoke of his struggles, his dreams, and his hopes for Emma. She found herself humbled by his wisdom and inspired by his resilience. And from that day forward, Rebecca made a commitment to herself. She would no longer view people through the lens of wealth or status. She would see them for who they truly were, human beings, each with their own story, their own battles. Mark, on the other hand, realized that he wasn't alone. There were people who cared, who saw the worth in others, even when the world tried to make them feel invisible. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Let's spread more kindness, one story at a time. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. Your support means the world to us.